He stomped his boot down on her back so hard the crack echoed through the neighborhood like a gunshot. My 8-year-old daughter lay face down on the concrete, her chalk dinosaur smeared beneath her, whispering, "Daddy, I can't move my legs." And the man who did it, he wasn't even a real cop. But what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. Let's start from the beginning. It started like any other slow Saturday. The air was crisp, the sun hung lazily over the rooftops of our sleepy cul-de-sac, and the distant hum of a lawnmower created a white noise of normality. My daughter Lily was on the driveway, hunched over a masterpiece in sidewalk chalk, her version of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, grinning wide and purple with little stars all around it. She was lost in her own world, humming some nonsense tune. Her backpack lay open beside her, crayons and chalk spilled like confetti on the pavement. Karen, my wife, sat on the porch swinging her robe, rocking gently, sipping her usual iced tea with lemon and crushed mint. She glanced down at Lily every few moments with that proud mother half-smile that says, "This is what it's all about." I was in the kitchen rinsing out my coffee mug, ready to take on my boring dad duties, mow the lawn, fix the leaky hose, maybe clean the grill if I felt ambitious. That was supposed to be the whole story, but life has a way of sucker punching you when your guard's down. A vehicle I didn't recognize rolled up, a white golf cart fitted with orange lights and the words HOA Patrol painted hastily across the side in uneven stenciling. It screeched to a stop at the curb like something out of a parody movie. 2 men jumped out, middle-aged, bulky, dressed in tan shirts and cargo pants like they were going on safari or looking for trouble. One wore a black cap that read HOA. The other carried a clipboard like it was some kind of holy document. Neither had badges, name tags, or any trace of real authority. "Hey," the man with the cap barked. "What do you think you're doing?" I couldn't see them yet from inside, but I could hear every word through the screen door. Lily looked up, startled. "Just drawing," she replied innocently. "On community property," the clipboard guy snapped. "This isn't your driveway, sweetheart." I stepped onto the porch as my heart dropped. Karen was already standing, cup trembling in her hand. "Excuse me, she's just a kid," Karen interjected. The one in the cap cut her off with a wave of his hand. "Your child is vandalizing HOA-governed sidewalks. That's a Class C violation. Unauthorized markings." "She's 8, Karen said, voice climbing. "She should know better," the clipboard man added coldly. "Graffiti is graffiti." That's when I began walking. I didn't run, not yet. I was trying to read the situation. I hoped, this was some horrible misunderstanding. Maybe these guys were just bored, drunk on false power. Then the man in the cap did something I will never, ever forget. He stepped forward, barked, "I said get up," and shoved Lily with his boot. She fell onto her side, startled, her chalk snapped beneath her elbow. "She's a child," Karen screamed, rushing toward them. And then it escalated fast. The man, heavy, red-faced, veins visible across his forehead, placed his boot squarely between Lily's shoulder blades and slammed her chest down into the pavement. The crack of her tiny body hitting concrete was louder than it should have been. Her scream sliced through the air, and then silence. Just one long, horrible silence. Then, "Daddy, I can't move my legs." Everything after that happened in flashes. I don't remember crossing the lawn. I just remember being on top of him, fist raised. I remember the dull thud as I tackled the man off my daughter, my forearm pinning him to the ground, his breath wheezing out of him in gasps. Karen was cradling Lily, tears streaming down her face, trying not to move her, whispering, you're okay, though we both knew that wasn't true. Blood pooled under Lily's nose. Her lips were trembling, her fingers twitched, but her legs didn't. Call 911. Karen shouted at no one in particular. That's when neighbors began emerging. Phones out, voices raised, some gasping, some yelling. One woman ran over with a first aid kit. Another pulled Karen away gently so she could wrap a blanket over Lily's small, trembling body. The second fake officer, the clipboard guy, backed away, stammering, We were enforcing policy. Someone shouted, "They're not even real cops. That patch just says HOA." I turned the man beneath me over and grabbed his shirt collar, locking eyes with him. "You think you're in charge of something," I growled. "You just broke my daughter's back. Do you get that?" He started to speak. I punched the sidewalk next to his head. "Shut up," I hissed. "You've said enough." His eyes were wide now, scared. He looked up at the ring of neighbors surrounding us, all filming, all furious. I leaned in close. "You just paralyzed an 8-year-old girl with a boot to her spine. And guess what?" My voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm the warden of Oak Ridge Correctional, the prison you'll be sent to if you're lucky." He blinked, uncomprehending. "Now pray the cops get here before I lose my composure." Siren wails began echoing in the distance, and I smiled. The ambulance hadn't even arrived when the first patrol car skidded into the cul-de-sac. 2 officers stepped out, young, underseasoned. One had a body cam clipped to his vest. The other wore sunglasses despite the cloudy overcast that had crept in. They glanced at the crowd, the man I still had pinned to the grass, the sobbing mother, and the little girl lying motionless under a neighbor's blanket. Then, like true bureaucrats, they walked toward me, not him. "Sir, we need you to let him up." "She can't feel her legs," Karen shrieked. "Do you understand what that means?" I didn't flinch. I kept my knees square on the man's chest. "You touch me before you secure him," I growled at the officer, "and I'll have your badge reviewed by Monday morning." The officer blinked. "Excuse me." "I'm Warden Jackson Reeves," I snapped, voice rising like a shot across a parade field. "Federal clearance class A, federal background. If you want to see my credentials, they're in the glove box of the black Ford parked 5 feet behind you. What you won't do is let this man stand after assaulting a child." The second cop stepped back, confused. The crowd was murmuring now. Words like spine, boot, video evidence, monster. I looked down at the man under my weight. "You better enjoy this grass, son. It's the last soft thing you'll feel for years." That's when the sirens multiplied. EMTs pulled in behind the squad car, and I let go of him only when 2 medics took over Lily's case. One medic looked up and muttered to his partner, "Probable spinal trauma, immediate immobilization." Karen followed them into the ambulance, hand never letting go of our daughters. Her face was bloodless, lips trembling, eyes stuck in that wide, unblinking stare people get when the world flips upside down and refuses to turn back. When I finally stood, the man I'd restrained rolled onto his side, coughing. I loomed over him. "What's your name?" I said. He wiped blood from his lip and didn't respond. "You'll give it eventually," I added. "Trust me, prison intake doesn't take kindly to I don't remember." The clipboard man, now sitting on the curb in cuffs, looked more like a schoolboy who got caught with cigarettes than someone who just helped ruin a child's life. He whimpered. "We were told by the HOA board that we had authority to enforce." "The who?" one of the cops asked. "Homeowners Association," I snapped, turning toward them. "Except these men aren't affiliated with ours, not officially. No badges, no proper paperwork, and from what I've gathered, this HOA board doesn't even exist. They made it up, stole authority, enforced rules with violence." "We didn't mean to hurt her," the cap man finally blurted. "She resisted. She was on the sidewalk. She wouldn't move." "She was 8, I said, drawing a dinosaur. He looked away. That's when the crowd surged. It wasn't violent yet, but the rage was building. People were yelling now. Phones were out pointed. Someone shouted, "We told the HOA we didn't vote for these guys." Another voice, "That's Mark Reynolds from the used car lot. He's not even on the board." The second officer called for backup. Good. They'd need it because the rot didn't stop with the men in tan shirts. That much was already obvious. I followed the ambulance to Mercy General. Lily was in the trauma unit within 10 minutes. They didn't let us in. Karen sat outside the doors, hands clasped in prayer, though I knew she hadn't prayed in decades. I just sat there, silent, rigid, staring at nothing. A doctor finally approached, his face a blend of neutrality and concern. "She's stable," he began. Karen broke, just sobbed deep, shaking sobs that made the whole waiting room stop breathing. But the doctor continued, "There's spinal compression, vertebral fractures. We're moving her into surgery, but right now she's showing signs of incomplete paraplegia." "Incomplete?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. "Some neural response remains," he said gently. "There's hope, but it's going to be a long road." Karen squeezed my hand until my knuckles popped. "She'll walk again," I said aloud, "even if I have to crawl on broken glass through hell to make it happen." And then I stood. I need to make a phone call. Within 24 hours, the story hit every local outlet, then national. The footage was impossible to ignore. Lily face down, blood on the concrete, screams, my voice cutting through chaos like a blade. "You better pray the cops get here before I do something you'll really regret." That line alone had been clipped, uploaded, shared 500,000 times by Tuesday. The HOA. Turns out there wasn't one, not in any legal capacity. The subdivision had dissolved its board 2 years ago, but a group of self-appointed volunteers had continued to enforce order. They issued fake notices, threatened fines, and even conducted walkthrough inspections with clipboards and threats. It was a scam, a slow, creeping scam that preyed on the fear of rules, of authority, of community regulation, and it ended when a child's spine broke. I watched the local news from a chair beside Lily's hospital bed. She was still unconscious from surgery. Karen had fallen asleep with her head on the mattress, hair scattered like feathers. I scrolled through my phone. My inbox was on fire. News anchors, activists, lawyers, even a senator's aide. But the one message that stopped me cold came from my old contact at State Penn, the one who owed me a favor. "You want them at Oak Ridge. Consider it done." I closed my eyes. Justice was coming home. 3 weeks later, I stood in the Sally Port of Oak Ridge Correctional Facility, clipboard in hand. "Name?" I said as the first man stepped through intake, handcuffed in front of him. He looked up, cap gone, pale, thinner now. The swagger was gone. "Mark Allen Reynolds," he mumbled. I looked at him a long, hard moment. "You assaulted a child, then impersonated an officer, then resisted arrest, then lied to the press." He opened his mouth. I stopped him. "You remember me?" He swallowed hard. "This is where you'll serve time. I run it. Welcome to hell." The morning they were formally indicted, I stood on the courthouse steps and watched the news vans pile in like sharks to blood. 3 counts of felony assault, 2 charges of impersonating law enforcement, criminal conspiracy, fraud, unlawful detainment of a minor, and the cherry on top, attempted abduction. It wasn't just Mark Reynolds and his clipboard partner, Tyler Hayes. No, the investigation had pulled back the curtain and revealed a whole gallery of shadows behind them. Fake HOA officers, phony notices, a rigged website, even an offshore PayPal funnel marked community violations. They'd been running a full-blown racketeering operation in plain sight. And the most twisted part, some neighbors paid the fines out of fear, out of not wanting trouble. We'd all seen the letters in mailboxes, typed in bold red ink, stamped with urgent HOA infraction. Most of us tossed them, but others, elderly widows, busy young couples, immigrants unfamiliar with American housing rules, they paid hundreds of dollars for dirty lawn edges, for unsanctioned garden gnomes, for excessive use of Halloween lighting. It was a slow robbery dressed in authority, and my daughter was the price of escalation. Now, the world was watching. At Oak Ridge, the inmates heard quickly. "Warden," one of the guards whispered that evening. "A few of the guys down in Block B, they saw the news. They know those 2 are here." I paused. "Do they know what they did?" The guard nodded. "They know, especially Martinez. His niece was hit by a drunk driver. Wheelchair ever since. He saw your daughter's photo on the local paper during yard hour." I didn't even have to say a word. Good. I wasn't naive enough to suggest inmates should carry out justice, but I also wasn't naive enough to stop karma when it walked in the front gate. What I did control was placement, and I made sure Mark Reynolds and Tyler Hayes weren't sent to protective custody. They were assigned to general population, the same way they treated Lily, not as someone precious or fragile, but as a number to intimidate. Now they were numbers. Inmate 54,127 and inmate 54,128. Their prison blues looked too big, like borrowed shame. No name tags, no clipboards, no fake authority. Just faces the whole country had seen 100 times in viral videos titled "The HOA Attackers." Real justice is coming. HOA cops? More like HOA crooks. They broke a girl's spine. Guess who's their jail warden? Even late-night hosts got in on it. Jimmy Fallon showed the footage. So did Colbert. Memes started. HOA equals hell on arrival. One showed Reynolds screaming over a chalk dinosaur, captioned, "Sir, that T-Rex is a violation of Community Regulation number 666. But it wasn't just humor. There was rage and momentum. The trial was brutal. Karen took the stand. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She just spoke slowly, clearly, every word like a blade dipped in mother's grief. She asked me if the dinosaur made her paralyzed, she said at one point. That line made 3 jurors flinch. I testified next. I made no apologies for tackling Reynolds. I told the truth. I told them about the HOA scare tactics. I listed the families who'd paid fines under duress. I detailed the hours Lily spent in post-surgical pain, asking why her legs were sleeping. And then the prosecution showed the video, the one from Mrs. Rodriguez's doorbell cam. It captured the whole thing. Lily on the ground, Reynolds' boot rising, Karen screaming, me sprinting into frame like a missile. The courtroom was silent. Not even a cough. The defense didn't stand a chance. They fumbled. They blamed confusion, miscommunication, claimed the use of force was a tragic misunderstanding during lawful enforcement. But by now the jury and America knew better. This wasn't enforcement. It was cosplay fascism. Verdict: guilty on all counts. Sentence: 23 years with no chance of parole for Reynolds, 18 for Hayes. But it didn't end there because something happened I didn't expect. After the verdict, dozens of families came forward, not just from our street, from neighborhoods across the county. They'd received fake HOA warnings too, some nearly identical in wording. Apparently, this wasn't the only cell. There were others, copycats, opportunists. Like weeds under pavement, they'd spread everywhere bureaucracy left a crack. So I did what I was trained to do. I fought back. I launched the Civic Integrity Alliance within the month, a watchdog initiative. I used my connections. I leaned on state senators, on county board chairs, on retired judges. I even called in a favor from a talk show host I once escorted through the facility on a prison reform tour. The Alliance gathered reports of fake HOAs, created a hotline, provided free legal advice to elderly victims, and we named names. We exposed another 6 phantom HOAs in 3 states within the first quarter. We brought down a group in Nevada that threatened families with eviction over unauthorized bird feeders. We took down a man in Texas who fined parents for letting their kids use sidewalk chalk. Every time we won, we used Lily's dinosaur as our logo. Her chalk drawing, digitally cleaned up, smiling wide, purple and proud, became a symbol of resistance. It printed on yard signs, T-shirts, bumper stickers. This is our sidewalk. Real communities don't need badges. But the story was never just about Lily, and she made sure I didn't forget that. It was 6 months after her second surgery. She was in physical therapy 3 times a week, still using crutches but getting stronger. We were in the living room, the same one where she used to draw on tracing paper taped to the coffee table. Now it was full of medical equipment, support cushions, and a whiteboard with her goals for the week. I was exhausted, angry at the world, bitter that she'd lost part of her childhood. Then she looked up at me and said, "Daddy?" "Yeah, kiddo." "I don't want to hate them forever." That silenced me. Why not? because then they still win. That's when I broke, not in rage and awe. I still visit them once a month. Warden's privilege. Reynolds won't look me in the eye. Hayes does, but his gaze is hollow. I never threaten. I never gloat. I just sit on the other side of the glass and say the same thing every time. She's learning to dance again. Then I get up, walk out, let the silence soak into their bones. 6 months later, Lily walked. Not a sprint, not a skip, but a walk. Slow, deliberate, shaky. 2 braces on her legs, 1 crutch, 1 determined spirit that refused to obey spinal cord trauma. She took 5 steps across the therapy room floor. Everyone, doctors, therapists, nurses, froze as if the earth itself had stopped spinning. Karen burst into tears. I couldn't move, just stared, jaw tight, hands clenched, because the image was too much. Then Lily looked up. "That's 1 step for me," she said, smiling crookedly, "and like 1,000 less for them." She remembered. Of course she did. The trial, the videos, the stares at school when other kids whispered. She knew exactly what happened to her and what it meant to be the face of a national movement. But she refused to let that become the end of her story, and she wouldn't let it become mine either. The Civic Integrity Alliance exploded in reach. Our hotline averaged 1,000 calls a day. We partnered with federal watchdogs, launched an open database of verified HOAs and known frauds. Local governments began issuing digital HOA certification badges to prevent impersonation. Homeowners began organizing real votes, real oversight. The fake authority crumbled. It was like termites scurrying out from under the foundation, blinking in sunlight, disintegrating. And at the center of that reckoning was a 3rd-grade drawing of a purple dinosaur. That image became the logo for Project Sidewalk, a nationwide nonprofit I launched with my old cell block counselor, a man who once helped turn gang disputes into community gardens. We raised $500,000 in 6 months. We built sidewalks, repainted chalk-friendly zones, installed benches in public parks where children could safely draw without fear of harassment from power-hungry cowards. We installed little dinosaur plaques in every one of them. Each one reads, "Lily's Law. Your imagination is not a violation." But not everyone applauded. In certain corners of the internet, we were called soft. He should have broken their legs. He runs a prison and didn't let the inmates handle it. Fake justice. I ignored them because real justice isn't vengeance. It's restoration. And Lily was rebuilding every day. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a community town hall. Me, Karen, Lily, and a packed audience of 200 neighbors, council members, and reporters. The mayor had invited us to present Project Sidewalk's impact. Karen spoke first, calm, emotional. Then Lily walked to the podium, crutch in hand. She cleared her throat. "Hi, my name's Lily. I used to think sidewalks were just for walking. Then I learned they're also for fighting." Laughter, applause. She grinned. "They told me my drawing was vandalism. I think they just didn't understand it. I think maybe they forgot how to imagine." Then she held up a framed version of the original dinosaur drawing. It had been cleaned, digitally printed on canvas. She gave it to the mayor. "I want this to go in City Hall," she said, "so nobody forgets what fake power looks like and what real strength is." Standing ovation, not a dry eye. That video hit 6 million views by sunrise. 2 months later, I got a letter. No return address. Typed. No signature. Just 1 sentence. "We should have known who she belonged to." I didn't need to ask. I knew who wrote it, but I didn't show it to Karen or Lily. I folded it, tossed it in the fire pit behind the house, watched the paper curl like a bad memory, finally exhaling. And now, every Saturday, Lily and I go for a walk. Same neighborhood, same sidewalk. We bring chalk, not to protest, not even to remember, just because we want to. Sometimes it's a dragon. Sometimes it's a frog in space. Sometimes it's a heart that says, "I'm stronger now." And the neighbors, they draw too. Grown adults, some in their 60s, kneeling beside their grandkids, scribbling cartoon cats, Eagles, Marines logos, Bible verses, or just the words "show who." It's our neighborhood again. Not theirs. Never theirs. Mark Reynolds now teaches JED classes in prison. He asked to be transferred to educational duty after 6 months of solitary for disruptive behavior. I approved it, not because I forgive him, not because I'm weak, but because I believe in redemption for those willing to face themselves. He'll never walk free again, but maybe he'll understand the cost of what he took. Tyler Hayes was moved to a medical wing after an incident involving stairs. The report said he tripped, but corrections officers don't trip often. When I visited the medical wing on quarterly inspection, I passed his bed. He looked up. I said nothing. He blinked once, then looked away. That was justice.